Yeah, 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 yeah.
And this week on the Weekly Check-In.
And this week in America is racist world. All right. Shortly following Biden's address to the nation, Senator Tim Scott, the only Black Republican who's currently elected official, came out and said America is not a racist country. All right. In response to that, media outlets began asking Vice President Kamala Harris what was her thoughts on Tim Scott's proclamation about America is a racist country. And she too said, I don't think America is a racist country. However, there's a lot of work to do. Following that, I'm paraphrasing. I'm totally paraphrasing. We could break down, what she says and in the context, and even Tim Scott. Following that, Joe Biden then supports Harris and says that, America is not a racist country. But if you kind of look at the 400 years of racism that African Americans face, it's something like, clearly we have a lot to do. And so then that created this whole conversation of if our administration, which heavily is voted in by Black voters, thinks or says that America is not racist, where are we at with this? Your thoughts?
So I think it's a lot to unpack with this. All right. So I think Biden did a great job in his State of the Union first, addressing racial disparity, putting that on the front line, because I don't think in our lifetime, including Barack Obama, we've ever had a president speak about racial injustice in the State of the Union in that manner. So I was like, I felt good about that. And then Tim Scott came after and refuted it. And then I feel like they put Kamala in the trick bag the next day by the way they posed the question to her, because they didn't say, do you think America is a racist country? They said, do you agree with Tim Scott that America isn't racist? And this is why that was a trick bag, because Tim Scott wasn't saying the same thing Kamala said, how you spoke to context, Kaya. Kamala was saying, I don't think all of the American people are racist, but we have racist systems. Tim Scott was saying, we don't have racist systems and America isn't racist and everything is all good. But to juxtapose her against that made it look like she was agreeing with all of the points that Tim Scott was making the night before.
And see, Dame, that was my problem. My problem, and I'm just so happy that you were able, that many people were able to see the trick game. What frustrated me with the whole thing is that we have never, like Damon said, we have never had a U.S. president say that white supremacy is terrorism. He said white supremacy is terrorism in a State of a Union address that had millions of Americans watching. He did not stutter. He did not, and we know that Joe has a stuttering problem. He did not stutter when he made that comment. He was very clear about what he meant. And they used, and white folks are good. They always find the one of us that are going to sell out. They get and they knew, let me also be clear, they knew he was going to say that. They knew that he was going to make racial points in that speech, which is why they stood Tim Scott up to then say, to refute him. It couldn't have been another white man to do it. It had to be a Black man, and they used Tim Scott to do it. So then they do that, and like you say, they put Kamala in a trick bag because they make it so that she gets a sound bite that then sounds as if she agrees with everything that Tim Scott has said, when in actuality she's refuting everything he has said, because what she says is that we have racial systems in this country that have persisted and they need to be eradicated and dismantled. But that's not the conversation that we're having. And then we have these reactionaries. We have the Amanda Seals of the world. We have all these people reacting, knee-jerk reaction, and getting us to get our eyes off of the prize. The prize is this. Joe Biden presented a State of the Union address where he took economics and said, economics is not racist. And you guys keep saying that you care about the economics. Well, here are the economics and here are the plans I have to deal with the economics. And by the way, because I know how you guys act and what you guys do, I'm going to say right now that we are not going to split this money up by race the way we've done it previously. We have made it so in this country where we've given some to this people and some to that people. That's not how this is going to get down this time. So I'm going to put it out here that I'm not here to be confrontational with y'all, because money is green, right? Remember, there's no racism when it comes to money. So since this money is green, we gonna make sure everybody get the same amount. And we know historically that hasn't been the case. So now what am I gonna do? I'm going to now center race again, because the president has decentered race by saying that I'm not coming here to be confrontational with y'all when it comes to this money. When it comes to splitting up this money, everybody gonna get a piece, and that's the way I'm gonna do it.
So
and that was the point of the speech.
So I have a question. Are you satisfied with Kamala Harris's, even though it was different contextually from Tim Scott's, are you satisfied with her, with how she understands race in America?
Okay,
and I have a follow-up question too.
Yeah. So, and this is a conversation I had with some of my comrades too. I said, so the issue with this Kamala Tim Scott soundbite thing, because they did a great job of making a perfect soundbite to tear her ass up and get her flamed right along with Tim Scott. The problem is this hasn't been a one-off for Kamala, and I think she needs to, my girl Simone Sanders needs to get with her and work on her communications when it comes to race, because this comes on the heel of the video going around with her saying, what do I look like, saying I'm gonna do something specifically for Black people, and then they play all the stuff she did specifically for Asian people. This comes on the heel of that, and then this comes on the heel of juxtaposing her against Tim Scott. So I say, all in all, it's just a bad look. The optics are bad. So even if, like, the things that she said like that, you don't get when she's talking about she was one of the main people who sponsored the anti-lynching bill. You don't hear about that. You hear about her saying, yeah, that has not been passed. That has not been passed. But you don't hear about that she's one of the main sponsors of that bill. You hear that she said, I ain't doing nothing for Black people specifically. You know what I mean? So it's just sometimes.
But anti-lynching law, even though it comes out of an African-American experience, it still is not a Black
exclusive to Black people.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this COVID-19 hate bill that passed,
Right. Well, and
but that's what we know. So I'm sorry, just that so Julius Wilson wrote a book many years ago in the 90s, and it's called When Work Disappears. And what Julian Wilson said was that if we name policy, if we racialize policies, especially when it comes to Black people, they will not pass. They will be stalled, right? Because of what we talked about previously in a previous weekly check-ins, because the filibuster is designed to stop them. So because we know that, and we know the system is set up that way, then we are going to de-racialize policy so that it can actually pass. Well, things like lynching and civil rights and voting, the racial nature of it is built into the cake. So it's very difficult to de-racialize those issues. So to Dame's point, it becomes almost impossible. You either damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because the policy, if you put race into it, is not going to pass. And you also know that if you don't talk about it from a racial perspective, the racial people that have supported you are going to be upset. So you're in this trick bag when it comes to Blackness, because like Damon said, when it comes to being Asian, when it comes to becoming any other minority, it's acceptable to have those types of conversations. So am I satisfied with it? I'm on the fence about it, to be quite honest with you, because my question is, logically, what was her recourse? What could she logically have really done? Am I upset? Am I happy about it? No, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about how it was handled. I'm not happy about the fact that it seems like she falls into the trap every time. No, I'm not happy about it. Just the same way I wasn't happy when Obama fell into the trap with Libya and getting rid of Gaddafi. I'm still not happy about it, but I understand it. And so being happy about something and understanding something are two different things. Am I satisfied with it? No, I'm not satisfied with it. But do I understand why? Yes.
And let me say, when it comes to, like you said, Kamala falling into the trick bag, and to me, this is the problem, because I know a lot of times Kamala's trying to be political, and the question was the question was even asked, like, well, people didn't flame Joe Biden the same way they flamed Kamala when he agreed with Kamala. I said, well, because again, in context, he wasn't juxtaposed against Tim Scott, and also he was a little smarter in his response. It was a little more pointed. Joe Biden said, I don't think every American is racist. And I think that's what, if Kamala would have said that, I think she would have got away with it. When they asked the question, do you agree with Tim Scott? She should have said, no, first. No, I don't agree with Tim Scott, but I don't think every American is racist. And then go into her points about systemic racism. Because what happened was, all you heard was, do you agree with Tim Scott? Yes, but systemic racism exists. But we in the land of the internet, we're not going to get to the clicks is not going to get to the systemic racism part of what she said. The clicks is only Kamala Harris, and this was literally the headline. Kamala Harris agrees with Tim Scott. That was the headline. And then Joe Biden was a little more pointed, and he said, I don't think all of the American people are racist. And I think that's what Kamala was trying to avoid, was saying all the American people are racist. But when she says, and goes to how we look at America and how white people look at America as well, right? So when she says America is not racist, she's probably was talking about the people, and that's what white people will understand. But black people, when you say America is not racist, we are automatically thinking about the systems. So when you say that, we say, are you saying that, so it sounds like to us, she's flip-flopping, even though I know from a political standpoint, she's probably trying to say, for the Midwest people, for the people in Iowa, for the people in Idaho, for the people in Wisconsin, she's probably trying to say, I'm not calling every single one of you racist, but I want us to address racial disparities. That's what she was trying to say, and that's not how it came off.
Which is why, Dame, you're exactly right. What she should have said to the question was, no, I do not agree with Tim Scott, and here is why. These are the reasons why I do not agree with him. And then she could have listed things, right? We the people, when we established this country, we the people was too narrow, right? Because you're going back to the same piece of this idea of we the people. The we the people was too narrow. It was too small of a definition. And because it was so small, it then excluded a whole group of people, with the foundation of that exclusion being Black people, right? There, you're exactly right. The emphatic no needed to be there, with then the explained caveat. And because the emphatic no was not there, it made her culpable for the answer. In the same way that Joe doesn't have to be emphatic in his no, right? So you are picking up on all of the things. And I guess my frustration is that I just don't want us as Black people to get lost in the sauce, because what this is really about is framing it so they can't pass the John Lewis Civil Rights Act, because they know that if they pass that Civil Rights Act, a lot of the state legislation, when it comes to voting all over the country, will become immediately null and void. There are 47 states that are passing bills that are going to make it harder for Black people to vote in these midterms. And that's what they want to be able to allow to stand. But because of the tiebreaker that Kamala, presents in the Senate, it makes it almost impossible if they could get it out of filibuster. So what do I want the American people to do? I want them to be re-engaged on this issue of race, so that the state legislature's laws can stand. That was the play, and unfortunately, she fell into the trap.
And we all know that as I'm going to call her a woman of color. As a woman of color, she already, just like we were talking about Serena, is under more criticism or under more scrutiny than others. We already know that. But if she, I don't know who her political media person is, does not continuously have these conversations with her to get out her answers, she will be forever known as the flip-flopper in the VEEP position, because that's how she's presenting herself, as not being a 10 toes down VEEP. She's Kwanzaa one day and Hanukkah the next day. You know what I mean? She's Black one day, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever, you know what I'm saying? In Indian another day, like her, it is reflective of even like this crises of identity that people were talking about in terms of her coming into office. So whatever that looks like, but what it is, as you pointed out, Sharice, what it is it's fuel for the fire for Republicans to continue. Like now they're going into full steam and trying to do the same thing in the Obama era that you always talk about, us leading up to Biden getting elected. Now is that they are trying to make it so, with all of the voting bills that are being passed in the states and also in this, what's going on in the Senate, they're trying to position themselves so that the Biden administration does not pass any more or get any legislation out that helps the people, right? So this is a crucial time.
And Kaya, the biggest thing for me is that this identity, right? This identity piece is that they are using her identity against her, because what they are doing is they're making her identity for her. they're making it so she can't claim any identity unless it's completely salient, meaning that you have to be completely saturated. But we don't do that to white people. We don't tell white people who have that have Irish heritage as well
Polish,
as
yep, exactly.
as well as Polish heritage. We don't tell them, oh well, you got to be all Polish or all Irish. We don't do that to them, but we are doing that to her, and not we as Black people. The system is doing that to her, and my problem is that she got to be more strategic in how she leverages her salient identity. And it is obvious that the saliency of those identities are going to fluctuate over time depending on what the issue is. So to me, her team has to be far better at crafting responses to statements when her identity is going to be most salient in those positions. Because if not, like you said, she is going to look like the flip-flopping VEEP.
Yeah, those are really good points. And actually, I know we're still on Kamala, but this is really a very, to me, in my opinion, poignant conversation to have about what America is about to look like in the next 30 years, and how all of these communities, how identity has changed. So she could really use this to her advantage if she is just more unapologetic about who she is. To me, Black community does not trip if you're like, I'm Black and I wear a sari. You know what I'm saying? I like samosas. My mom is Indian. Hell, I got a cousin who is East Indian and Black. We don't bang like that in Black families. You know what I'm saying? So if she would just bring that out, and talk about it unapologetically, I think people will embrace that more. But because it seems like she has to feel hella Black in some places and hella Indian in some places, it's like, okay, whoa, what were we doing? Like, where do your allegiances lie, right? It's in like this gray space. And you are correct. You know what I'm saying? A white person can jump out anytime. Well, my grandfather was Jewish. You know what I'm saying? And then jump back into their whiteness, right? So you are totally correct. I want to talk about, it's interesting, like we're talking about how the Republicans are now like gearing up and putting their firing squad out. Let's talk about the Republican, I don't know what you want to call it. Is this Obama 2.0 strategy?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Because Mitch McConnell literally came out and said, my only strategy is to stop this administration from doing anything. He didn't even say to stop them from doing anything damaging. He just wants to stop them from doing anything, which was his exact playbook with Obama. He just wanted to stop anything that would help them to be able to get reelected. Like, it's not like he's putting his platform up against his. He's just like, no, we just not going to do nothing. We just not going to do shit. We're not going to let anything pass. We're not going to let anything happen. And we're going to keep the Senate at a standstill until we can make them look bad enough to get Republicans back in office.
But dang, let me tell you something. So my son said something so deep, and me and my dad both raised our eyebrows like this. And I want to say this on the show because it helped me to understand that even at his age, at 7, he understood the nuances of race. He said, Pop, that's what he calls my dad. Pop, Joe Biden's a Black man on the inside. And really? He said, that's what my son said. He said, and you know why? Because what white guy would play number 2 to the Black guy? That's what my son said. Ooh. My son at 7 years old told my dad.
I need a drink of water on that
one. my son told my dad in the car. My dad was almost in tears. He said, Pop on the inside.
Your son been here before, huh?
Been here before. He said, because who would play number 2 under the Black guy? And what we have to remember is, for Mitch McConnell and everyone else, that's who Joe Biden is to them, the nigger lover. That's who he is. And that's what he represents. And so the reason I can use the same tactics on you that I used on the Black man is because now you've decided that your allegiances are no longer with us. Not only did you play number 2 underneath the Black man, you chose a Black woman to then be, or a woman of color to be your second in charge. And not only have you placed her second in charge, you are giving her the same amount of influence. How many other vice presidents of this country?
To her a lot, really.
Defers to her. How many other vice presidents of this country can we even name? We're going to always be able to name her because of how he's positioning her. So what you guys have to understand is, you're exactly right, Kaya. Yes, this is Obama plan 2.0 because you are the nigger lover. Period.
Damn.
Whoa. What do you say after that? That is so, yo, I'm telling
That's
you,
the realest.
that
That's
is the realest.
Damn.
There have been these whole conversations really about interracial relationships that I've been looking at, and in particular black white ones, right? Because we always, when we say interracial relationships, there's a whole bunch, but black and white. And this white woman was saying that, when a white woman decides to be with, in particular, a black man, it's hard for her to date white men after that because she's considered to have crossed the line. So for a white woman to marry a black man or have a child by a black man, it, on the social political scale of whiteness, it's very damaging and disrupting. So this actually goes exactly to your point. I also want to say that not only are the legislators, we also, was this the guy in Florida, DeSantis?
DeSantis, yes,
Florida?
DeSantis, yes.
Right. About he actually is making it difficult for ex-felons to vote still.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what he's doing, what DeSantis is doing down in Florida is that there was a measure that passed, or I don't know if they call it a measure or referendum down in Florida, but it passed. And when it passes in Florida, when it's brought up for the vote, it then becomes a part of the Florida Constitution based upon how their measures are written. And so now it is illegal then to stop it's now illegal, right? It's against the Florida Constitution for you to stop a felon from voting, a nonviolent felon. But what DeSantis has done is said that they have to basically pay restitution to the state for that right to have it back. So they have to pay, they have to pay these fines. So that's when Bloomberg has stepped in and said, well, how much is it? Well, I'll just make the payment and then this can all be absolved. Well, now DeSantis is saying about this payment that the payment has to then come through then the offender, so that Bloomberg, instead of being able to make a mass payment and pay these things off, it would have to come through the offender. So that is how he's presenting the new wrinkle in this process. And let's remember that this process was started, and his name is escaping me at the moment, but by a person who was formerly incarcerated,
A black man,
a black man who was formerly incarcerated and got his law degree, and then started to adjudicate these cases and brought public awareness, and then got it placed on the ballot, and then won, right? And let me be very clear why this is detrimental in Florida and why it won. Because in Florida, you could become a felon just for not riding without your license. So if you don't ride without your license, I think it's 2 or 3 times, and they catch you, you are automatically a felon. Let me tell you why that's problematic. Because if you haven't paid your child support, then they suspend your license. If you're driving on that suspended license 2 or 3 times, now you've become a felon. So what happened in Florida is that too many poor white people started getting caught up in the system of becoming felons, which is why there was this massive push to get their rights reinstated. Because to Kaia's point, Florida is a battleground state and will continue to be a battleground state because of how brown it is and all of the back and forth in Florida. Florida is going to continue to get browner. So the idea of that fact that we cannot have poor whites without the right or the ability to vote is the key piece of this. And so that is one of the biggest reasons that they got the measure to pass and be and we got this felony, this reenfranchisement of felons is because of this reason. So it's so deep. There's all of these layers that are presented with this situation with Florida and DeSantis.
Yeah, what I'm hearing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm looking for the brother's name. Go ahead.
Okay. And so what I was hearing about even the measure that they wrote, that DeSantis wrote, because it was such a rush job too, they also say now it's probably going to affect older whites, and it's going to affect older whites and veterans more than they thought it was going to affect black people. So it's actually still might backfire on Republicans because of the way that it was written.
But see, that's my point, is that because Florida has become such a melting pot, right, and that they haven't been able to craft ways to ensure that people that believe in white supremacy stay in charge, they always, when they go to write these laws, they actually do more damage to themselves than they do to who their intended target is. And that's the same thing we're seeing in Georgia, right? The same thing that's happening in Georgia is that you want to go after mail-in ballots. Well, Well, mail-in ballots have helped Republicans in the past. The only reason it helps Democrats was because of the pandemic, and Black folks took COVID a little more seriously than white folks did. So the same thing is happening. They're running out of strategic moves and ways to use the democracy. And this is why I keep telling young people, this is the moment. You want to know if your system works or if it's going to work. This is the moment, because the same system that you're crying out about is the same system that's allowing you to break them down, which is why they want to change to an aristocracy. They want an ability to have a king-like figure make decisions, because now the people in the democracy, we the people, are becoming too brown. That's just the reality of what's happening right now.
You know, we've talked about this before, but the price of white supremacy and how it is costly on all sides. And this is something that is not new. This is even from, after the Civil War, when you had these extremely poor whites, who all they had was their white skin and were aligning with blacks, in order to have some type of enfranchisement, get this carrot, dangled in front of them and be like, oh, but your whiteness is going to protect you. And so then they leave the organizations and the campaigns and initiatives that really protect their interest in order to exist in this whiteness poor, right? And so this is why in states like New Jersey, you have all white encampments living in the woods because they cannot afford housing, but they will dare go to Newark, to a black city, to get subsidies. They'll rather live in the woods with the whites, right? So this is the insanity that happens in these white structures. Another thing, was there something that happened in Georgia recently with the voting? I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but was there something that has been added with the governors?
It was something very similar to what they did in Florida, right? Where they wanted to change the voting. They wanted to cut the first week of early voting. They wanted to change the voting hours. They kind of wanted to take Sunday out of voting because of souls to the polls. So again, they were doing things, same thing in Florida, trying to target black folks and trying to target older black folks to stop them from being able to vote, because they said a lot of older black folks don't even have driver's license, because why would you need one? Because you're older. So it's like, so they were doing the same things, and there's a lot of legislation. I think there's one coming out in Wisconsin. I mean, I know they said there's 47 states that's releasing it. And basically what happened, there was a conference in DC where all of these bills are coming from the exact same playbook. So they all met, and then they made like a draft, and it's like, this is the basic draft and the basic tenets that we want in all of these bills. And they took them and disseminated them throughout the 47 states. So if you look at them, a lot of them are very similar.
And Dame, so the organization is called the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation actually flew down to Louisiana right before I left for my grandfather's funeral, because they have a slate of legislation, and one prong of this is the vote, and the other prong of this is education. So they're trying to stop Black people from voting, and they're also trying to stop race and racism and sexism to be taught in the classroom. So it's a two-prong approach, and so all of this legislation is coming from the Heritage Foundation. And what they do are they have people on the ground. Well, not only that, they flew people in to testify down in Louisiana for the bill when it comes to education, where they're trying to stop us from talking about racism and sexism in the classroom, which is why, Kaya is doing a great job editing my book right now. But that's another reason why the book is so important, because it highlights the structure in which they do these things and how they manipulate the law and manipulate the people inside of legislatures and use our federalist system to do it, using the fact that something may not fly at the federal level, but I can get it to work at the state level. So that's what we're seeing right now. The Heritage Foundation is a conservative, a conservative think tank that also has a super PAC attached to it, that then, so it has money, right? It has legislation and money, a money power to then stop donors from giving if you don't then align with these policies. So it's a all-out assault on the democracy in such a way that allows for them to control and maintain power.
If you want to see good news, you don't see on regular TV, from another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we